In one world, life was peaceful and ordinary. People walked the streets among brownies, enjoying life. Everyone greeted each other and asked how they were. Children had lots of fun, enjoying life and playing, while parents watched over them to ensure they didn't fall or get hurt. Both children and adults were happy. However, when he appeared, everyone felt uneasy. Even the children knew who the man was and quickly tried to hide behind their parents. The parents, upon seeing him, immediately became angry and told him to leave. No one wanted to look at him because he had a poor appearance. Everyone whispered among themselves while looking back at him, referring to the man as the scavenger. He kept coming into town, entering the same room. But when he entered a store, everyone wondered why he showed up. No one was happy to see the scavenger, and no one wanted to be near him. Everyone quickly moved away from him. When the scavenger approached the cashier, he immediately started pulling out all sorts of trash from his pockets, saying he wanted to sell something. Seeing the items, the shopkeeper realized that the scavenger was trying to sell trash again. Knowing he couldn't offer much for it, the shopkeeper threw a few bronze coins on the table and asked if the scavenger agreed. The scavenger was very dissatisfied, as it was only a fraction of the market price. Of course, he couldn't be happy about it. The scavenger started shouting that it was a theft, but the shopkeeper responded that it was just trash and questioned what right the scavenger had to complain since he was just a scavenger. The scavenger realized that in this world, at every step, love could be in danger, like monsters hunted by adventurers. Every day, these adventurers fought monsters to obtain valuable and rare resources. By defeating monsters, they leveled up. Each level was a significant increase in power. Everyone knew that levels determined everything in their lives. In this world, the scavenger's level was 1 because he was a first-level adventurer. When he reached the market, he approached someone he always spoke to, always asking for some bread and saying please. The man always greeted him kindly, saying he had saved some bread for him, and the scavenger was, of course, grateful. However, when he paid, he realized he was always short on money. The man asked if the scavenger wanted to quit being an adventurer. The scavenger was surprised, but the man continued, suggesting there might be other activities better suited for him. Before the man could finish, the scavenger said it was too late. He was already labeled as a scavenger and no one needed him. Since childhood, he had dreamed of becoming an adventurer, but when he finally achieved it, he found himself cursed. Now, he couldn't level up. He was shocked because this shouldn't have happened. Instead of gaining skills, he was cursed. Unable to level up in any way, the boy eventually went to his first home. But after he defeated some monsters, he crouched in front of a screen, realizing he couldn't gain experience and level up. Despite this, he couldn't give up because he wanted to become stronger. Every time he tried to gain experience to level up, he was shown how to gain experience. Alka fought, hoping one day he would be able to level up. But repeatedly, he couldn't gain experience. After some time, Alka realized he would remain at level 1 for the rest of his life. Eventually, he ran out of money and began stealing what adventurers left behind after their quests. That's when Alka earned the nickname the Scavenger. He also realized that no one needed materials from level 1 monsters, and the only way to survive was to take high-level monsters destroyed by others. Still, no one around him liked Alka. As he walked through the crowd, a boy tripped Alka, initially claiming it was an accident. But as soon as Alka fell, the boy stomped on the bread Alka had just bought. Looking up, Alka saw a screen showing that he was a pathetic and unpleasant scavenger. Alka recognized the boy as Jaragui and saw how the children laughed at him. He realized that the entire town knew him as the scavenger and disliked him, refusing to hire him for any work. Still, he couldn't understand why this was happening to him. All he wanted was to become an adventurer and achieve his dream. But no matter what he did, everyone knew him and avoided him. He had no other choice because he could starve. Finally, Alka entered the goblin's lair. This was the main area of low-level goblins, and he hoped to find some destroyed monsters with rich treasures to sell. However, he suddenly noticed a smell, an eerie feeling like something was rotten. As he went further in, he immediately saw a shattered dragon. Although he didn't fully understand what it was clearly above his level and a very serious monster. Nevertheless, he didn't care because the materials from a dragon were worth tens of times more than those from ordinary monsters. However, he soon realized that all the valuable parts had long been taken, leaving only the worst behind. Then, Alka noticed the organs, which were usually left untouched due to their disgusting smell. But this smell was particularly foul, yet Alka didn't ignore it, as it could help him survive. However, as he tried to pick it up, he felt something inside it. He was shocked to realize there was something inside and quickly decided to cut it open to see what was there. What he saw was astonishing. Despite the hard shell, he couldn't understand how it had gotten there. In an instant, a great force shattered the shell, and Alka was terrified as he didn't know what was happening. He realized that if it was a monster, he wouldn't be able to fight it. But then he heard a voice saying just one word, "Take it." The boy hadn't expected this voice because he quickly realized it was coming from the chest plate. But whatever it was, he knew it was very dangerous and understood one thing: he needed to run. He ran as fast as he could, but then goblins appeared in front of him. He stopped, growing even more frightened as there were about 4 or even 5 very aggressive goblins in front of him. However, he didn't lose his resolve. He quickly assessed the goblins. Although their level was similar to the first one, there were more than 4 of them, and he knew this time he had to rely heavily on his sword. He saw that they were also at the first level, but their equipment was too poor to fight them effectively. However, the goblins had a different opinion and soon started attacking Alka. He realized he was in serious danger. The first goblin managed to snatch the sword from Alka's hand, and even as he saw the goblins, he still understood that he could die here, in this hole. It was sad that his life might end like this. He recalled moments of walking the streets and being pushed around with no respect. Suddenly, he heard a voice telling him, "Wear this," and a very strong aura emanated from the armor behind him. The first thought that crossed Alka's mind was that he would be eaten alive. But then he realized that wearing the armor was better than being eaten by the goblins, who were already closing in on him. Besides, he understood that he had no other choice. Behind him was the armor that only spoke to be worn, and in front of him were a small number of goblins ready to tear him apart. In the midst of this, Alka decided to wear the armor. The preparation was complete, and the registration of the owner was also finished. A voice from the jacket stated that the emergency installation had been confirmed. As soon as Alka heard this, he turned around and saw something happening. In an instant, something unexpected occurred. The installation of the Abyss armor was complete, and Alka now looked like a true knight in luxurious black armor. As he looked at his hands, he was astonished by the new power from the Abyss. He believed he would die soon after this. However, he then heard the armor say that he must follow the commands of its owner. He turned to see the goblins had started to attack. He decided to trust his new armor to fight off the goblins. As he swung his sword, he realized it was incredibly sharp. Compared to his previous sword, this one was night and day. With one swift move, Alka was able to cut a goblin in half. As the half-goblin fell, a light appeared and began to emerge from it. The light rose and entered Alka's chest. He didn't understand what was happening or what kind of magic this was. Something very sacred from the goblin suddenly floated up and pierced into Alka's chest. However, he still saw the goblins continuing to attack. He had only destroyed one goblin so far. He understood that the time had come, as with the new armor and sword, he could do anything against these level 1 goblins. The effect that occurred on the first goblin he destroyed repeated with the others, and his body began to shine again. However, he didn't understand why this was happening, even as the goblins continued to attack. He felt like this wasn't just about him. But despite this, he no longer cared because he felt the sweet taste of victory over the goblins. So, drawing his sword, he immediately destroyed everything in his path. What this looked like from the outside had to be seen because, after all, we had never seen Alka look like this before. Moreover, he realized that this was the end for the goblins and, with a single slash, he was able to destroy the remaining goblins attacking him. As he stopped and raised his hand, he realized he was still alive after the great battle against the goblins. Although he thought he was a low level and had managed to destroy 5 goblins at once, the magical light didn't stop. He was very intrigued by what kind of light this was, but suddenly Alka saw some markings in front of him, indicating that his level had increased, though he didn't understand how this was possible. From his perspective, it was clear that he was very shocked since he had received the level. His previous level was level 1, and now his level was level 6. Standing in front of the dragon, Alka saw that he had received a message confirming his level, and at that moment, his level was level 6, which was very surprising. After all, he didn't understand how the level could be obtained and increased. He didn't understand what all this meant because he knew he couldn't gain experience points in any way. But who would have thought that thanks to the Abysmal armor, he could use the level absorption ability. When Alka saw that level absorption was a skill that allowed him to absorb the levels of defeated enemies, he was astonished because it meant he could level up. He was shocked but understood that he didn't gain experience through words at all. His levels increased solely due to the ability to absorb levels from his enemies. He realized that the sacredness he felt in his chest after each monster he defeated was actually the level absorption. After all, only now did he begin to realize how drastically his life had changed since he could level up and was no longer a level 1 novice. Holding his new sword in hand, he understood before, but now he felt much faster. After all, he had reached level 5 and even started moving faster than when he was at level 1. Only now did he start to understand and realize the fact that he could become much stronger than before. When he stopped, he was quite pleased about it, but still, something bothered him. When he turned around, he realized that it was just the smell that bothered him because it was truly terrible where the dragon was. But after thinking for a bit, he realized that it no longer mattered because, thanks to this dragon, he was able to increase his level. Then, after pondering for a while, he began to understand that if he defeated all the enemies in this cave, he could become even stronger than he is now. After all, they probably couldn't hurt him thanks to his armor. If he fully utilized this, he could destroy all the goblins in this cave. As Alka thought about this, he suddenly felt something behind him. After all, he knew there shouldn't be any strong goblins in this cave, but what he saw in front of him was very shocking. It was very surprising and also terrifying because in front of him stood the Goblin King. The Goblin King was the guardian of the Goblin Cave, and Alka didn't understand where this tall goblin had come from. However, he understood that he had to do one thing in this situation: turn around and run to the exit as quickly as possible without looking back. But when he turned around, he realized that the goblins were attracted to the dragon. Moreover, his armor also recommended retreating because the enemy was at a higher level, and he fully realized that he couldn't fight them. Despite the significant level difference, he understood that he wouldn't be able to escape from these goblins. This was because the goblins started attacking Alka, and he realized this was very bad because the level difference was enormous. After a while, Alka could still somewhat withstand the goblins' attacks, but not for long. The goblin was so strong that, with one punch, it could literally hurl Alka a great distance. After crashing into a wall, he realized he was in a lot of pain but still had to get up. The goblin was already approaching him purposefully, and he didn't understand the strength of the monster he was facing. Even though he managed to increase his level, he was still too weak to fight a high-level goblin. Nevertheless, he understood that this was very bad. Although he recently thought he could increase his level, all his plans fell apart when he realized he was still as unlucky as before. However, the only thing he was very fortunate about was being able to escape from the goblin. He still didn't understand how he could get out of here now because the exit was guarded by the Goblin King's troops. Nevertheless, as he returned to his starting point, he realized he was too weak, but a good idea suddenly came to mind. He thought that perhaps he could wait safely until everyone left. That idea was, of course, excellent until one of the goblins approached him, walking straight toward him. Even though the goblin was level 1, it saw Alka and immediately started attacking him. Alka had grown stronger because he could kill the goblin just by cutting off its head, something he couldn't do before. Now, he could not only decapitate but also literally throw the goblin against the wall with ease using his hand. It was no longer difficult for Alka because in the world he was in, everything was determined by levels. Even they should have understood the difference between them, just as he understood the difference between himself and the Goblin King. Nevertheless, he was about to destroy the goblin as soon as he realized there was confirmation of its owner's level. After all, his current level had already risen to level 7, even though it was still level 5 just a few minutes ago, and he remembered that he could increase his level. And if he absorbed enough levels, he could even defeat the Goblin King. After all, he thought that before, he couldn't destroy anyone, but now everything had changed a lot because now he had to destroy to survive. That's what he started doing, destroying goblins one by one. Moreover, his sword was so powerful that it could cut down 2 goblins at once with a single stroke. His sword was so sharp that it cut through everything in its path without needing much force. After a while, he simply destroyed the goblins, turned around, and left, realizing that in this world, only the strong survive. And only those with high levels can survive because the weak are always subject to the strong, and he knew this from his own experience. Meanwhile, Alka had already reached a high level. But ahead of him in the tunnel, he saw an incomprehensible end, and in front of him were 2 lit torches. The armor also recommended checking the side caves that were lit, and Alka was also curious to see what was inside. Upon entering, he saw in front of him a pile of gold coins in various chests and golden objects. He understood that these goblins had taken all this treasure from people. After all, although they were all level 1 goblins, ordinary people couldn't fight them. However, he decided to look around because there might be something he could use in the future. As he looked around, he felt attracted to something more than just gold. Strangely, it was a chest, and he was very interested in what was inside it. When he opened one of the chests, he saw several bottles in front of him. He understood that these were recovery potions, which were much needed. After all, they were potions they had, and Alka realized he needed to take them to continue fighting so he could recover at any time. Alka also noticed that his armor had a special space for the potions. As soon as he thought about the space where he could place these potions, a reaction suddenly occurred, and a new compartment appeared next to his pocket. Upon closer inspection, he realized that his gear had a new chain for storing potions. After putting in all the items he could, he thought it was very useful and was very grateful to his gear for this opportunity to store potions so close to him, so he didn't have to carry them in his hand or a bag. However, Alka wanted to take some gold coins but realized it would hinder him in battle. He understood that his main goal now was to return to the city safely. After all of this, if he could get out of here, he could enrich himself by selling monster materials, which was a good thing for him. Therefore, he made the right decision to leave without the gold so it wouldn't burden him. As he started walking, he suddenly heard a noise from behind and turned around immediately, then ran towards the sound, thinking someone might be there. But what he saw behind the boxes shocked him. After all this, a girl was sitting there and he began to realize that these goblins not only took gold but also people. So, he quickly told the girl to wait because he would help her and untie her. Mill immediately smiled and thanked Alka. She introduced herself as Mill, saying she was from the village of Racker. However, when Mill asked for the name of the man who saved her, Alka suddenly hesitated and said his name was Sarka. When Mill heard this name, she immediately realized who he was. However, Mill didn't have a chance to say anything when the man asked if she had ever heard of the nickname Caranero. Mill quickly apologized, saying she had heard rumors about him, but now the situation was entirely different. She realized he was different from what she had heard about Sarka, but Alka turned and asked what they were talking about, and Mill said that he had saved her life and didn't seem like a scavenger at all. Mill then smiled and said that, to her, he wasn't a scavenger but an Alka. Alka thought that this was what he wanted, to be an adventurer who saves people from danger. So, he immediately told Mill that he would take her to the village and that they needed to leave right away. He headed back the way he came to leave and see Mill in the village, thinking that despite everything, everyone was still very happy. As they walked through the tunnel, he thought it would be better for Mill to hide behind some rocks for a while as he checked the surroundings. At one point, Alka began to feel that goblins were approaching, and when he turned around, he saw a large group of goblins, much larger than before. He understood that their number was already significant, and even after thinking for a moment, he realized that they were all first-level goblins. So, the only thing Alka said to the goblins was that they should prepare because they would soon reach his level as he pointed his sword at the goblins. But somehow, the goblins had a different look. So, the whole crowd in front of Alka immediately attacked him. But as quickly as they ran towards him, they also quickly disappeared from Alka's onslaught. With each swing of his sword, he destroyed at least 2 or even 3 goblins at once. Meanwhile, Alka quickly absorbed levels, becoming stronger. Thanks to this, his attacks became faster, and his movements were as quick as his strikes. His reactions improved significantly, and his senses sharpened, allowing him to sense attacks from behind. With his speed, he could dodge any attack and literally obliterate his enemies. Soon after appearing, he began to attack anyone in his path. His level increased rapidly, and for Alka it became almost entertaining as he found various ways to destroy those in front of him. He felt power he had never experienced before. The more enemies he destroyed, the stronger he became, and he understood this perfectly. Alka looked at the goblins differently now, seeing them as simple levels to gain rather than monsters he might have feared before. After a brief pause, Alka received a notification that his level had increased. Just 2 minutes ago, it had been a lower level. Then a girl appeared from behind the rock and asked Alka if they could leave. Alka replied that they couldn't yet. However, Mill turned and saw the monster. Alka said he had destroyed many of its kin, and finally, standing in front of Alka, came the Goblin Lord, determined to destroy his rival this time. But at the same time, Alka, seeing the Goblin Lord, understood that he wanted to destroy him as much as he wanted to be destroyed. Finally, he stood before Alka. It seemed the Goblin Lord was in a furious mood. He let out a fierce roar, and Alka prepared for battle even though his level was lower. Despite the Goblin Lord being at a higher level, Alka simply said that he was no longer the dog that had run from him before. Alka threw his weapon back and prepared for the attack. The only thing he said was that he didn't believe the Goblin Lord could defeat him easily. Then he prepared for battle as he had before. When the battle began, Alka could only land 1 hit, but it struck the right spot, injuring the Goblin Lord on the side. As Alka turned around, he realized some goblins were glaring at him angrily. Seeing this, he realized their numbers were overwhelming. However, as long as the Goblin Lord was alive, he didn't want to be distracted by minor matters. So, after calling Mill, he quickly asked for a knife. Mill, without hesitation, agreed and threw a sheath containing knives towards Alka. But somehow, all the knives started flying out of the sheath, heading straight for Alka. Mill apologized, saying she had thrown it awkwardly. Alka told her not to worry about it because he managed to catch them deftly. With his increased level, he could perform actions calmly and swiftly. He easily caught all the falling knives and immediately used them to attack the goblins, who became easy targets for him. His movements were so fast that some goblins didn't even realize how quickly their opponent disappeared in front of them and reappeared elsewhere. All of Alka's knives rose into the air. The only thing he said was that they were unlucky because they shouldn't have disturbed him, as now he had no desire to help with the situation that had worsened for their lord. With a swift movement, Alka threw all the swords he held, destroying all the goblins in front of him. By doing so, he was able to absorb the levels from all the goblins he faced, and his level increased again. In an instant, the Goblin Lord decided to attack Alka from behind. However, he found it quite easy to raise his sword to parry the attack. Now that his level was higher, he was much stronger than before, but the next blow struck Alka hard. Alka couldn't understand why this happened. After all, his strength level was higher than his opponent's. He didn't understand where such strong pressure was coming from. Although he could easily overpower his opponent, he didn't grasp what was happening. But then, Alka received a warning that this monster had a bracelet that enhanced its strength in battle. Alka realized why his opponent seemed so strong. It possessed an object with enhanced features. The bracelet was on the hand that held its sword. Normally, it's not easy to level up and become more resilient, but by wearing items that enhance combat or defense abilities, Alka realized that even monsters could have such equipment. Alka then decided that his next goal was to destroy the bracelet, as that would lower the monster's strength to a weaker level. The Goblin Lord immediately started attacking Alka, trying to destroy him. However, Alka managed to dodge the attack. With attacks like these, Alka realized this would not be easy for him. He had to exert all his strength to win. Alka quickly started attacking the Goblin Lord, who managed to defend himself quite well. Even though one of the attacks was so powerful that it made the ground shake, the Goblin Lord still managed to retaliate. The attack sent Alka flying far, as he hadn't expected a counterattack. However, he quickly got back up and said that this wasn't over. When he turned around, he saw other goblins being destroyed with their own knives. He then had a good idea, grabbing the knives and immediately rushing to attack the Goblin Lord. Bit by bit, he began throwing the knives at the monster, but the monster managed to defend itself with its weapon. Alka didn't think of stopping his attack and kept pressing on. At one point, the Goblin Lord realized it was getting harder for him to defend because the attack was so intense. Soon after the knife assault, Alka grabbed his sword and charged at the Goblin Lord to destroy him. As Alka attacked, the other goblins didn't understand what was happening. Alka said that from the beginning, this was the only thing he wanted. His goal was to destroy the bracelet because once the bracelet was destroyed, the Goblin Lord would lose all his strength. He said there would be no more surprises. Alka immediately turned to the Goblin Lord, saying that he had seen a weak young man at the entrance of the dungeon, but now he was much stronger than the Goblin Lord, and the Goblin Lord should flee in fear if he could, because with just one attack now, he could completely destroy the Goblin Lord. Since the difference in their strength levels was so vast, with one attack, Alka could do something he couldn't do before. As the Goblin Lord tried to protect himself, he was thrown very far, crashing into the wall with full force. Alka approached him and asked if he was afraid of Alka's strength. It was no surprise, as his life was now at stake. The first thing he did was knock the weapon out of the Goblin Lord's hand. Alka stood remembering the words that everyone called him a scavenger and everyone disliked him. He understood that if he could defeat the Goblin Lord, he would be free from that weakness forever. Therefore, for the Goblin Lord, this was the end, as Alka would not wait any longer.